Waiting on a Happy Forever. The sweet Regency romance story vignette, written by Leenie Brown and narrated by Christopher, an authorized voice replica. Author's note: for November 2023's Broadsheet story, I saw a story prompt somewhere. I think it might have been a first-line sort of prompt about a lady watching leaves fall in the autumn and knowing that her future would be decided that night. As you will hear, I changed the leaves to snowflakes and decided to only sort of decide the young lady's future by giving her an answer that was not exactly what she wanted. A few early snowflakes twirled and circled as they fell past the window on their way to the nearly frozen ground. "Come away from the window, my dear, you will catch a chill." Emily Barker smiled at Aunt Isabella, who was always fearful that the slightest draught or bit of cold would result in the death of all she loved. "I'm quite warm," she protested, but did as her aunt had suggested. There was no need to have a haranguing about illness added to the thing strumming on her frayed nerves. Her father had been shut up with Mr. Fisk for nearly half an hour already. How long did it take for a man to either approve or disapprove of a fellow? She fiddled with the edge of her shawl. Was it a good sign or a bad one that the interview was taking so long? "Your mother used to say the same thing." Her aunt gave her a stern look over the spectacles perched on the end of her nose. She never thought she would catch a chill, but she did. And she let her thoughts trail into a sad sigh and a shake of her head followed by a poor dear. What her aunt had not said this time, but had many other times, was, "And we all know how that ended." "I miss her too," Emily said softly. Her aunt held a hand out to her and she took it. "She would be so proud of you." Aunt Isabella's skin crinkled as she smiled. "That Mr. Fisk is a fine catch. I do not think a better match could ever be found for you, but then I thought the same about the last gentleman who was calling on you, and he turned out to be a bit of a cad. Indeed, he had. That gentleman had not been free to be calling on others as he had. He had been engaged to a young lady for nearly a year before he had called that first time at the Barker residence. His betrothed, Emily had later discovered, was a sweet young woman who had not been able to take her season as planned due to her father's ill health. She had also broken off the engagement when she learned that the man to whom she was to be married had been calling on several ladies in her absence. It was quite the scandalous affair and had been fodder for the society pages for weeks and weeks. "I do think this one is better, though," her aunt said as she turned back to her stitching. "I find him to be far better and a great deal more to my liking." She'd never felt quite right around her former suitor, though she could never pinpoint why until after the scandal erupted. Until then, she had passed her unease off as never having had a serious beau before. "I should hope so, if you have given him permission to speak to your father." Her aunt winked at her. "And I dare say you are hoping for a positive result from that interview, are you not?" "Oh yes," Emily said on a sigh. "And if the outcome is not in your favour, you know how your father feels about you being only 17. None of your other sisters were allowed to marry until they were 19. She blew out a breath. That was the problem, was it not? That, and Mr. Fisk is only 23. Her aunt nodded. "There is that too. Your father does not wish to put you in a permanently precarious or worse, utterly unfortunate situation." "I know, but—" She pulled her lower lip between her teeth as her brow furrowed in worry. "Would you wait for him to be an age of which your father approves? Or would you rather pass him over and hope that the next gentleman to catch your fancy is at least 2 years older than Mr. Fisk?" Wait for another gentleman? The thought made Emily's stomach twist and her heart ache. Her aunt chuckled. "I think I can tell your answer from your expression, but just to make certain I am correct, what would your choice be?" "Oh, I would wait. Happily I would wait. I cannot imagine that there is another gentleman whom I could love so well as Mr. Fisk." "I am happy to hear that." Emily nearly jumped out of her chair at the sound of her father's voice. How had he managed to open the door to the drawing room without being noticed? She steadied her nerves a mite. And just a mite. Before she rose and turned to discover her fate. A smile lit her face as she saw Mr. Fisk standing behind her father. He had not been sent away. Surely that was a good sign. "Your young man has come to the same decision. It seems he is determined that you are the wife for him, even if he must wait until you both meet my standard for age appropriateness." Her father came into the room and took a seat near his sister. Mr. Fisk followed but sat near Emily. It was not the answer for which she had hoped, but it was also not the one she had feared. Mr. Fisk has put forward the notion that the waiting period would be put to good use if you were to decide what needed to be redecorated at your future home. I agree. It would be a very good project to undertake. That did sound like a good scheme to be had. Between that, her father continued, and making certain that all the other things involved in forming a new household are put in place, I think the both of you will find the time to drag along only minimally. He chuckled. I like to think that, but I too was once young and in love, and therefore know the truth of the matter. I had to wait a full year to marry your mother. And he was none too pleased about it, Aunt Isabel inserted. No, I was not, but it was for the best, he sighed. It was a good year, and our marriage began on a firm foundation of friendship and stability. The value of such a gift cannot be overstated. We will write to your sisters tomorrow with the joyous news, her aunt said, and in a fortnight we will have a celebration of the betrothal. Her father was fond of hosting dinner parties for whatever reason he could dream up. But is that not too soon? Christmas will only be a month after that. Emily gave her father what she hoped was a convincing look of concern. In truth, she was teasing him. Too soon? I should say not. Your sisters were planning to arrive 2 weeks before Christmas. They can just come a month before and stay 6 weeks instead of 4. I do not know. She tapped her lip with a finger. Perhaps it would be better to wait. Her father's eyes narrowed. I know what you're about, and it will not work. You must wait. I must have my party when I wish. I do not see how that is fair. It is not. It is the privilege of old age and being the father. That was a common excuse that he used for getting his way when others did not get theirs. Mr. Fisk, you will of course submit a list of people to invite. I will indeed. How many do you suppose that should be? Mr. Fisk's family was not small. Her father waggled his head from side to side as he thought. Not more than a dozen? Will that be enough? 15 would be better, Mr. Fisk countered. Then 15 it shall be. Her father put his feet up on a stool and poked his hands into the small pockets on his waistcoat. Now that we have that settled, Izzy and I will discuss the particulars while you two find the music room so Emily can play for us all. Anxious to hear, in private, all that had transpired in her father's study, Emily rose quickly to leave with Mr. Fisk. Just leave the doors open here and there. We can abide a bit of a draught for the pleasure of some music. As you wish, sir, Mr. Fisk replied. And, he called after them before they had reached the door to the drawing room, make sure there is more music than silence. And with a chuckle, he shooed them away to be cosy and companionable, over a piano and a few sheets of music. Thank you for listening to Waiting on a Happy Forever. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please help other readers find it by liking this video and sharing it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you'll always know when I upload another video. The 2023 copyright for Tales from Pemberley and other sweet story vignettes in which Waiting on a Happy Forever can be found is held by Leenie Brown, all rights reserved. The narrator for this story has been Christopher, an authorized voice replica made available by the voice actor through the Elevenlabs library.